Hey, Mike Jackson here from Best of the Tetons in beautiful Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Today I want to talk about making panoramic images, and I'll talk a little bit of what we do out in the field as far as overlapping the third, getting the camera level, some adjustment settings and that kind of thing. And then I'm going to bring some of those images right into Lightroom Classic, and then we'll stitch those together, make a few settings changes that are fairly important. And more importantly, right up front, I want to talk about why we do panos in the first place. It's all about gaining pixels versus losing pixels. And so if you shoot with a wide angle lens, crop top and bottom, make it look like a pano, but it's really not a pano, you lose a lot of pixels for that. So I'm going to show you how to do that, why to do that, and I believe after you understand the concept, you'll turn yourself into a pano maniac like me, and you'll add this tool to your toolbox and be out in the field doing it all the time. This is an old image from 2010 taken with a Nikon D300. That's a 12.3 megapixel image, and I use a 24-70 Nikon lens, and this is shot at 24 millimeters and then cropped, and so I'll show you what that crop looked like. So I threw away roughly a fourth of the image at the top and a fourth of the image at the bottom, and if I crop that, it looks like a faux pano. But as it turns out, this is only 6 megapixels. I threw away at the top and the bottom. I only have 6 megapixels. So let me show you what it would look like if I did it as a pano. This was shot as a pano in vertical orientation, and I'll show you the crop on this. So there's a total of 7 images here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can see the little adjustments there, and so this image would have 20 or 12 megapixels here, and then you overlap a third. Let me get rid of this crop here. Get rid of that, and so this area is 12 megapixels. If I overlap a third, then that's roughly an 8 megapixel capture, another 8 megapixel, and so forth. 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. So multiply 6 times 8. I got 48 megapixels plus the original 12. Now I've got a 60 megapixel image here on the screen that I could print much larger. This is the original image after it's been stitched together. It hasn't been cropped yet, and this is one of the advantages of shooting panos religiously, is I have the option after the fact to be able to crop it in multiple ways, artistic ways. And if I want to go, let's say the original 2:3 ratio, I can make additional crops here any way I want, like that, like that. I probably wouldn't do that, but there it is. So you see the advantage there. And now if I wanted, let's say I was going to print this on a 1:3 ratio, I can go back over to the crop tool, R, and I can pick 1:3. Maybe I'm going to print this 1 foot by 3 foot or 16 by 48. I got plenty of megapixels to work with, and you can see that I can recompose the shot with the mountain in the center or otherwise. So you get the idea. So it's a picture within a picture, and you can adjust that any way you want. And if I were going to do a photo, let's say for Instagram, I want to do a 1:1 ratio, I still can go in and crop a square out of this whole picture, readjust. There's lots of reasons for doing pano captures and then restitching them. I'm in the grid view of Lightroom Classic right now, and I've got this set of shots I took just the other day. It was taken with a Nikon D6. That's a 24 megapixel camera, and I shot these horizontal. One of the things that you find out sometimes is that you don't always have the lens that you might think you need, and this is one of those times you can do panos with the lens you have. And so this is shot with just two pieces, right? And here's the first one, and there's the second one, and that's what it looks like when it's stitched together. So if you were to say that's 24 megapixels and that's 18 megapixels, now I have a 42 megapixel image to work with. If you were with me in 2010 when I took these photos, you would see that I set this all up on a tripod. I got the tripod totally level and got the camera level on the tripod itself. It takes two parts. Then I got ready to shoot these shots. What you have to do in the camera is you want to make sure that you have the same exposure all the way across all the shots, and you want to have the same focus distance all the way across within the shots. Nowadays I have one of my function buttons set to auto focus lock and auto exposure lock, but you still can do it manually if you like. Just put it in manual exposure and then shoot with the focus locked. Once you've focused on one zone, lock it on the side of the barrel of the lens and shoot all your shots. They'll all be the same. If you look over on the left here, this is the first shot out of the 8 shots that I took. And really, I don't use that part of the image that often, but I go ahead and shoot it wide just because I never know what I'm going to do later. And the first one, I look through the camera and I look over here and try to find something that's in the camera on the right hand side, and then I try to make sure that that area is in the left hand side of the first shot, and of course then I look on the right side to see what's there. And so this one is going to get cropped roughly, and it's going to get overlapped roughly right in there. That gives me my 1/3. I'll do the same thing. See, this area right here is the same as that area right there. So effectively I'm just using this part of that image. The software does all that for you, but you can see each one of these has roughly a 1/3 overlap, and you can get away with sometimes a quarter, but I like a third. I reset these images just to show you, the steps that are involved in making this image work. A lot of times people will do a lens correction while they do the import. I typically don't do that. I usually save that and do it on the fly. A lot of times you'll find that you'll have some vignetting on the edges, around the edges of the corners, and if you have it on every one of them, when you merge them together, there'll be a little darkening. It's kind of like a comb on the teeth on a comb. You'll see every one of those splices. And so the first thing I usually do is I go in and I have all of them selected. First thing I usually do is I go into the develop module, that's D, and then I go down to the lens correction section, and if there's not already turned on, I turn these two buttons on, remove chromatic aberrations and enable profile. And in this case, this is the Nikon 24-70, and what that does is it straightens this up, or it takes care of the barreling or pin cushioning, whatever distortions that happen, and it usually removes all the vignetting on the actual image. So once that one is selected, let me go back to grid view here, I can show you. Then while that one has been adjusted, these haven't, and so all I do is hit sync settings, and I just leave them all on since they're all going to be the same. Nothing's been adjusted yet. And now within a few seconds all of them are going to have the same settings. I underexposed this image when I shot it originally. That was back in 2010. This is 2021. I probably would have exposed a little brighter nowadays, but that's what I have here in this one set of images. So all of these are selected, and all I'm going to do now is I can go, I have two ways of doing it. I go to Photo, Merge, Pano, and you can see there's a Control M. This is on a Macintosh, so it's either it's Control M also on a PC. That brings up the dialog box for the panos, and if one of these doesn't work, if you get some distortions and so forth, I just try each one of them until I find the one that works. So this one's going to try spherical, and it doesn't usually take too long. These are only 12 megapixel images. Within a minute or two, I'm going to have the resulting pano. This is the DNG file I just created, and let me cheat a little bit and make this quicker for the video. If I have G for grid, I can go up and select one of those that I already did, and then hold the shift key or the command key down, select both of them, and I'll say sync settings, and I'll tell it to go ahead and do all of them. and bingo. So now if you were to go into the settings, I'll go to D for develop, and you can see, I brought the temperature down a little bit, and you can see pretty much all the settings. I brought the highlights down, the shadows up, exposure up just a little bit since it was underexposed. I don't have any texture in it, but I could add a little bit still. Clarity, I brought the dehaze up, vibrance is up a little bit, and I believe on some of these I did some with the adjustment brush, and so there would be some adjustments here where I made these a little bit brighter, maybe a little bit more golden and so forth, but you get the idea. You can do the sync command if you have one already done. I do photography tours here in Grand Teton National Park under Best of the Tetons Photo Tours. Most of my clients will ask me prior to the trip what lenses to bring. And the short answer is bring all of them if you can, but if you're tight for space and you have telephoto lenses, I would leave all the wide-angle lenses at home and bring your telephoto, mid-telephoto, and standard, like 24 to 70 landscape lens. It seems like that's all you really need, especially if you're using a tripod, and it seems to work fine for me, and it seems like most of my clients agree after they've gone on a tour. I hope you enjoyed the video and got some useful information out of it about photography here in Grand Teton National Park and Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Check back often on YouTube and visit some of my other sites when you have a chance.